Hello and welcome to Comically Incompetent. My name is Doug.
And I'm Ben.
And this week, we're going to be covering another Marvel character. Take a DC week and right back into Marvel.
That's the way it goes.
Yeah, it's what you got to do. We are going to be covering Abomination from the Hulk. I think the only villain I know of from the Incredible Hulk and from the Incredible Hulk movie from 2008. So we're going to be covering that, as well as this week, because we've mentioned in the past it's kind of hard to get beer, we're just going to cover a brewing company in general called Abomination Brewing Company. We'll go more into that at the end of the show.
Why did you choose that one?
I thought it was a little bit like highbrow comedy, like no one really made the connection.
Yeah, I don't get it, but I'm sure we'll figure it out as we go deeper into that. So, Abomination, or in his human form, Emil Blonsky, which, by the way, is a super fun last name to say. Everybody try saying that one. Blonsky.
Blonsky.
Nice, right? So, Blonsky, like you said, is the primary... I would consider him the primary antagonist of the Incredible Hulk, because he is very similar to the Incredible Hulk, and we will get into that. But, first off, he's Marvel, like Doug said, and his first appearance was in 1967, which is about 5 years after the Incredible Hulk was written. He was very directly, and the creators have mentioned this, very created to be the anti-Hulk, essentially, or the evil version of Hulk, your Red Guardian to Captain America, your Joker to Batman. Like, he was very much so directly created for that purpose. These are going to be some names you guys might be familiar with. He was created by Stan Lee, who worked on a couple Marvel characters. And then hilariously enough, he was also worked on by Gil Kane, who in our last week's episode, Green Lantern, Gil Kane was one of the creators of Green Lantern. So this guy's all over the place.
Yeah, fantastic. I wonder how that worked out.
Yeah, he was kind of around, he kind of hopped freelance style between all the major comic book brands and made some of the biggest characters. He worked on some iterations of Spider-Man. He worked on a lot. Like, his name is everywhere. So this character is really gross looking. Yeah. I'm going to lead into it. And that's comparing him to the Hulk. The Hulk is a handsome fellow compared to this guy. So he's roughly the size of the Hulk, give or take. You know, we're not splitting hairs here on the size of monstrously large, because I was gonna call him a monstrosity, and then I was like, wait, that doesn't quite work. What are you gonna do? He's got scaly skin, kind of lizard man-esque. You don't see that as much in the movie, I don't think, because he's not like a fish, but he's got a little scaly skin. He's got kind of a swampy green color, kind of gross, and then his ears are actually little fins. They kind of look like little fish fins. So he's a little creature from the Black Lagoon-esque individual.
They definitely did not do that in the Incredible Hulk movie in 2008.
Yeah, he was much more like, God, who's the Superman villain that kills Superman?
Doomsday.
Yeah, he looked a lot more like Doomsday.
Yeah.
You know, kind of more just general Abomination than water Abomination, but, you know, what are you going to do? So, get into this character's origin. So, he was a communist spy that was sent to infiltrate the New Mexico Air Force Base. If anyone wonders why that term might be, the New Mexico Air Force Base might be kind of in their heads a little bit. This is the Air Force Base that throughout the comic books, Bruce Banner, the Incredible Hulk, has done most of his gamma radiation tests. Anytime he's working with the military, he's usually posted up at the New Mexico Air Force Base. So, just a little fun bit there. So there's a little bit of backstory we're going to go into before we even get to Abomination, because this is he comes up in the middle of a story, I'd say. There was a character sent to Earth called the Stranger. The Stranger was trying to basically disarm Earth because this is the middle of the Cold War. We're a bunch of angry little people with our nuclear bombs threatening to destroy the Earth. And he's like, hey guys, that's really irresponsible. So he got sent here to try and disarm, or if he needs to be, basically kill everyone on Earth so we don't nuke ourselves to an oblivion. His big power was mind control. So he mind controls Bruce Banner, which is very dangerous because there's the Incredible Hulk. And he wanted to use the Incredible Hulk to destroy the superpowers on Earth because he doesn't trust them. So, Bruce Banner transforms from the Hulk back to himself. Sorry, I should be like a little more specific. So he mind controls the Hulk. Bruce Banner isn't mind controlled because that's a whole thing, I guess. That two separate mind thing. I love some of the writing they do with that. So Bruce Banner does, he says, okay, they're going to use the Hulk to destroy the Earth. I'm going to kill myself. Like, I need to find a way to kill myself. So he goes into his lab, and he sets his different laboratory equipment to unleash the biggest burst of radiation, of gamma radiation that he's ever done, even more than the burst that turned him into the Incredible Hulk. Right before he's going to activate it, the guards bust down the door and they're like, dude, you can't just kill yourself. We're going to find a better way to do this. So the Air Force guards haul him out and they're like, listen, we're going to work through this. We're going to find a solution. Let's work on it. Unbeknownst to Bruce Banner, but Emil Blonsky was hiding in the lab because he was trying to get as many notes as he could and take all this information back to the Eastern Europe, essentially. He walks up and he starts fiddling with the machine, which is what you should always do. When there's a scientist that's freaking out and talking about trying to kill himself and messing with the machine, you should always go mess with the machine. It's never
even if you're not
bad.
Yeah, if you're not trained, just go up and just start pushing buttons, pulling levers.
Dude, it's the way to go. You just those big fun levers with the red balls. You know, they look so fun. Yeah. So, of course, this is the way it goes because he's not a scientist. He's a communist spy. Emil accidentally activates the machine. It blasts him with so much radiation that it instantly transforms him into the Abomination, which we kind of went into his physical appearance, as you can imagine, a little earlier. So, terrifying. Immediately, he starts wrecking the Air Force Base. The Hulk busts down the door, and he's like, all right, here we're going to go. Like, we're going to fight. But it was so much more gamma radiation than the Hulk got hit with that Abomination beat him into the ground. Like, Abomination almost killed him. Like, he was just sitting there, bleeding lump, just like Thanos kicking his butt in Infinity War, just sitting there with a tooth missing. So that's not good. So then Abomination peels off, just starts wrecking havoc, kind of as you might imagine. Banner starts thinking, he's like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do to take care of this? And he's like, okay, this machine shot out all this gamma radiation. What if I could like reverse engineer it to sap gamma radiation? During this whole process, he's still got the trouble of sometimes being mind controlled. So he's dealing with that at the same time. Like everything's kind of stirring him. It's not a great time for Bruce Banner. I'm going to be honest. But he succeeds to do it. He successfully reverse engineers this machine. He engages the Abomination again, and he uses the machine to start sapping power from him. It's working, but it's working too well. Hulk gets excited and smashes the heck out of the machine. which is the... Oh, dude, what a bummer. Like, Bruce Banner does all this work, and he creates this awesome machine. He fixes the problem, and Hulk is like, it's going well. Smash it. Destroys the machine. But it does manage to sap out just enough of power out of the Abomination that they get back into a fight. Hulk wins. Beats down the Abomination. Almost kills him. Inch of his life. Now, back to where we were at with the Stranger. The Stranger saw that Bruce Banner was, in order to protect his people and his planet, willing to, one, to kill himself, two, to go through all the effort of this machine, and then three, to get in a fight with this creature that had just recently almost killed him. So impressed by his heroism, he's like, okay, you know what? There are good people on Earth. I'm going to recuse myself. He takes all mind control out of the Hulk. And before he leaves, he takes the Abomination with him. And he's like, I'm going to use this as an agent. And then he takes the Abomination. They go off on space adventures. And he uses them a couple times for peacekeeping, his way of peacekeeping on different planets. Eventually, the Abomination gets loose, comes back to Earth. And from this point, it's one of those tale as old as time. Hulk and Abomination just keep beating the heck out of each other for like the next 50 years.
Is that a tale as old as time? I mean, when you say that, I think like Beauty and the Beast, and not.
Don't you see Beauty and the Beast here?
Okay, yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah.
I see it.
See? No, you just can't. I didn't think about it that way. No, yeah, but no, it's one of those just two hero and villain just constantly fighting till the end of time. Pretty neat guy. I believe the iteration in the movie in the MCU is like a little different. I think, was he like a rival? I think he was like a rival scientist or something like that. I didn't think he was. It's been a while since I've seen that movie, but I didn't think it was this exact story. But this is the traditional. Okay, so that's the general gist of the Abomination. Like that origin story is fairly consistent. The MCU one might be a little different, but we'll kind of feel it out.
Yeah, we'll get there when we get there.
We'll get there when we get there.
We'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Yeah, dude. We're going to cross that bridge with all of our might. With all of our Abomination-like strength, we will cross that bridge. Now, time for our weekly game show of... I'm not even going to call it powers. I'm just going to say name stuff about this character. This is another pretty long list. There's a couple more descriptors than powers, I will say, that I'm assuming I'm going to get into later. But what would you think? From what you've seen in the movies, from what you've seen in cartoons, comics, What does this guy do?
I mean, brute strength, brute force and strength.
He's a strong boy. He's a real strong boy.
I mean, I'm going to say besides that, not a whole lot. I think it's just a massive behemoth, just
abomination
I
of a
don't
man.
even know. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
All right, so first leading off with that superhuman strength. So in the Marvel Universe, they break down all skills into numerical values. It's like a chart made by, I don't know if it was somebody at S.H.I.E.L.D. I think it might have been the way Nick Fury classifies them. But you hear it occasionally in like the MCU. They'll be like, oh, it's like a blank level threat or a strength, yada, yada. So he
Like in
literally...
Pacific Rim.
Yeah, like in Pacific Rim. That's a good movie.
It was.
But this guy literally has the highest class of strength. He's a class level 100 strength, which normally you see people leveled like 1 to 10. But he's more or less as strong as the Hulk. I'll kind of get into how that works exactly. An important thing about the Hulk is that his powers are amplified by rage. So if the Hulk is the normal Hulk, not ticked off or anything, Abomination's actually stronger. Abomination can beat Hulk in a one-on-one fight if he's not enraged at all. But as Hulk gets angrier, Hulk gets stronger. So like the strongest iterations of Hulk have literally split planets in half. Like by just being in the center of the planet and just like pressing the planet into two different things. So enraged Hulk is a lot stronger than Abomination. So that's kind of key point there. Second, about his radiation transformation, the Hulk got split into two very different personalities. So you obviously have Bruce Banner and you have the Hulk. Bruce Banner's really smart. Hulk is maybe not quite as smart as Bruce Banner. But Abomination maintains his human intellect while as the Abomination. So that's kind of an important key into the way he fights and stuff. The downside of that is he's a spy. He's not a scientist. So like Banner obviously is a smarter individual than Emil Blonsky, but he has the trade-off of he's not as smart when he's the Hulk. So
does he change between like normal person and Abomination the same way Bruce Banner changes between Bruce and the Hulk?
That is the bummer of this guy's life. No, he does not. The Abomination, once he becomes the Abomination, that's who he is. Yeah, it sucks, dude. Like, it's rough not being able to control it, but being permanently that thing, like, again, he's not pretty.
Yeah.
He's not a pretty individual. And then this is the other one, is his transformation is stable. So a lot of times, and I know it's going to sound like I'm talking about the Hulk a lot in this, but Abomination is like 100% a Hulk bad guy. Like he doesn't really interact with other people. It's him and Hulk duking it out. And obviously there's a lot of comparisons. So the Hulk kind of like loses his mentality and he goes on rages and he, kind of like we saw in like Thor Ragnarok, he just was the Hulk for like years in that iteration. Emil as the Abomination is mentally stable. And I don't think they show that in the MCU super well because he just goes into rage killing everything. But he knows what he's doing. He maintains his spy-like ideas and everything like that. He doesn't just tear apart buildings. He knows what he's doing, which makes him like a really, really dangerous threat. He is a smart guy when it comes to doing bad things. So that's about his gamma radiation. And that's just his Hulk transformation. But there's even more about this guy. Much as everything ever, he's very durable, Doug. Did you know that? Guy's durable. He can take a punch.
He's probably bulletproof too, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm sure if they used like Judas bullets, which are a thing in the Marvel universe, Judas bullets like burrow through enhanced individuals, probably could shoot them. But yeah, traditional firearms like that don't really do anything about him. As you might guess from his fish-like appearance, he has extended breathing underwater. He's not fully able to breathe underwater, but he can be down there for a long time.
Yeah, they did not go into that at all in the 2008 movie.
Yeah, I don't think they ever throw him in the water. He's one of those characters, it's like, how do you lead into that?
Yeah, that's true.
And then this is going to be another point about both him and the Hulk, is you technically cannot drown or kill them from lack of oxygen. They just go into comas for an extended period of time. But these characters are both basically unkillable, which makes for some really awesome fights in movies, cartoons, comic books. Like, can you imagine they always make jokes about like, oh, an unstoppable force and an immovable object. What if you just had two unstoppable forces fighting each other till one eventually gets ticked off enough that he wins?
The closest thing I think we have to a fight that could compare would be like in Man of Steel, Zod versus Superman on Earth when they're both at like their peak abilities because of the Earth's atmosphere.
That was intense.
Like that fight was insanity, and I feel like this would be like the same kind of like, if not more.
Oh yeah,
intense.
These are like world-ending fights between these guys. They have some pretty incredible fights between them. And then I think probably the last thing that I love watching about this character or seeing about this character is because he's a spy trained in the military and he regains control of himself, human intellect and everything. He actually has like good hand-to-hand combat in this form. You know, like another place where you might see this is I think I mentioned it earlier, but the fight between like Thanos and Hulk in Infinity War, it's a very similar thing where you're like, yeah, Hulk's really strong, but when he's the Hulk, he kind of just smashes things. He swings his fist around, he jumps and slams and everything. But then you put him against an equally strong creature, or, you know, slightly weaker, slightly stronger, that actually knows how to fight, and like, oh man, that's going to make for some nasty fights.
Yeah.
Nasty fights. But, yeah, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? It's a big boy. Yeah, he's a tough guy. I consider him kind of a staple in, not so much in Marvel, but in Hulk, because this is the only villain that can really stand toe-to-toe on a consistent basis with Hulk. And they make for great fights. I'm interested to see if he gets reused anymore. Technically, we've had him in the MCU.
Yeah, I was going to get into that a little bit.
That movie's a bit of an interesting one. I want to talk about that one a lot. Not necessarily like every specific about it, but like there's a lot of interesting things about that. Obviously from like the Bruce Banner side and from the way that they brought him to cinema, I'll say, like, or the way they brought him to the screen, like the way they kept his look and everything like that. So if I were to compare this character, I think we all might know who I'd compare him to.
I wonder who it is.
He's a little hulky, you know. But that's kind of the gist of him. I kind of want to dig into the movie a little bit more because this is the first one that I feel like we have a good movie for. I feel like a lot of our recent characters, like we talked about Green Lantern last week, we didn't have great movies to talk about. I feel like this one we might. So do you want to give us like a little background? I know you're the cinema guy.
So before we get into the 2008 movie, we have seen him in television. So Abomination appears in the Incredible Hulk television show from, I believe, the 1990s. He was voiced by Richard Mole, and he was alongside Gargoyle, and serves as the leader of the Gamma Warriors.
Oh, that's such a sick name.
I've never seen any of these, so I'm just kind of giving the rundown. He appears in the Superhero Squad show, voiced by Steven Blum, and he is a member of Doctor Doom's Lethal Legion. We see him in The Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes. We see him in Lego Marvel Superheroes. We see him in, this is my favorite name, Hulk and the Agents of Smash.
That is fantastic. By the way, I want to do a whole episode on just iterations of Hulk, because there's a whole bunch of like legions of Hulk and stuff. It's fantastic.
Yeah, so Abomination appears a lot throughout TV, even a non-voiced appearance in Avengers Assemble, where he's actually subdued by Hulk and Black Widow in that one, so that's interesting. But in the film, we do have the 2008 Incredible Hulk, so this is placed in the MCU right after Iron Man. So Iron Man appears in the end credit scene of this movie. Now, the only character that we have that continues with the same actor is we have General Ross, who appeared in this movie, and he was the
great.
Only character. Yeah, William Hurt plays him, the only character to keep going, as far as the same actor. Now, in this movie, we do have Edward Norton playing Bruce Banner. Now, from what I've heard, I don't know if this is true, they asked Edward Norton to come back, they're playing the Avengers and these, what we have now, and he wanted more money, basically thinking he was irreplaceable. And they said, no, you're pretty replaceable. And they replaced him with Mark Ruffalo, who now we've seen throughout the entirety of the series. So it's interesting the way they did it. It's a canon film. It happened in the MCU. But they never reference back because they had to change the main actor. So we never hear of Abomination again.
It's pretty impressive the way that they... Again, I think this comes up every time we talk about any character that's been in the MCU, is like they do such a good job with casting. Like
Yeah.
I saw Edward Norton as Bruce Banner and I was like, this is great, love it, I want more of this. And they brought in Mark Ruffalo, I was like, but I want Edward Norton. And in like 5 minutes I was like, got it, love it, you're Bruce Banner. Like,
Yeah, and the thing about this one is I wouldn't say it did weird, it didn't do bad. It was a good movie and it did pretty well for the fans. Fans liked it. It gets a weird rap because of the fact that they kind of pretended like it didn't happen, as well as still moving it forward. It's a weird situation that they put themselves in, or that kind of Edward Norton put them in.
It felt kind of ignored. Like I got to be honest, because obviously I was in freshman year of high school or 8th grade or something when these movies came out.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that this one was canon in the MCU until like after Avengers 1. And then somebody was like, yeah, no, that's considered in the MCU. I was like, are you serious? I was like, I did not put 2 and 2 together. Because, when you're younger, you don't cast them. You don't know. But I got to say, another credit to the casting on this one. Dude, Tim Roth was really good in that movie.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he was perfect Spyman. John J. Spyman.
Yeah, and he played a soldier who I don't remember it. I haven't seen it in a long time, but they gave him serum and it went wrong. And
yeah, it was a little different of an iteration.
Yeah.
Than I think it was that people were trying. I think it was the same idea where they were trying to like steal Banner's technology, but it was not the same iteration where there's this whole other plot with the stranger.
Yeah. I mean, in that movie, Tim Roth did amazing. We also have Liv Tyler, who is fantastic. She played Betty Ross, his love interest in that film, who, again, they never bring up again because then they introduce Mark Ruffalo and Scarlett Johansson, that love interest that we see in Age of Ultron. And it's definitely interesting how they had to keep it canon. This movie exists. It happened in the MCU, but they never speak of it again.
Yeah, you think at some point they'd do some little wink of like, oh, we don't want it to be like yada yada town. Like they do a lot in the MCU where they're like constantly referencing like little bits from other things. But yeah, this is definitely kind of good movie, but redheaded stepchild kind of vibe.
It was directed by Louis Leterrier. I don't know how to say it. I don't know how to say names a lot.
I'm not familiar.
He directed Transporter and Transporter 2. I never saw either of those. He directed Clash of the Titans, which was the good one.
Yeah, that one was cool.
Clash of the Titans was good. Wrath of the Titans was the bad one. And he also directed... See, a lot of fans are going to like this one. He directed a lot of episodes of Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance on Netflix.
Ooh, that was neat.
Yeah, so he has good work. He's a good director. He directed Now You See Me.
You kind of get in an unfortunate situation with this one because of all the... whatever the situation might have been over the recasting of Bruce Banner.
That happened a couple times early on. The same thing happened with Terrence Howard playing Rhodey.
Yeah.
He was like, I want more money. And they said, no, we can replace you. And then they just replaced him with Don Cheadle, who was outstanding. And I'm really glad they did. I like Don Cheadle more than Terrence Howard.
Yeah, I'm so glad he got. But not that I don't love Terrence Howard. He's fantastic. Yeah, so I couldn't imagine now going back because I love Don Cheadle. Like, Don Cheadle's incredibly high on list of my favorite actors. Probably more than most people. I have like this really weird affinity for the guy. I mean, like, obviously great actor, but he just cracks me up in very interesting ways. His delivery is just fantastic. Just perfect MCU kind of delivery. And that's another recast they had to do. And you know what? I think people have stopped trying to bet with Marvel if they're willing to recast him now.
Yeah. So I'm reading this thing real quick on the Incredible Hulk movie. So Tim Roth, played the Abomination, talked about that. In the movie's storyline, Blonsky was a Russian-born British Royal Marine on loan to General Ross's Hulkbuster unit. Captain Blonsky wanted to relive his glory days and volunteered to be injected with a sample of the super soldier serum, which was frozen after, Captain America. However, it only made Blonsky crave more power, and he forces Dr. Samuel Stearns to subject him to Bruce Banner's blood, despite being warned of the unstable effects. So that's the backstory they gave Abomination in the 2008 film, which now I'm reading it, makes a lot of sense.
So it's like it's the same kind of heart, but it's a very different way that they went about from the traditional comic book iteration.
Yeah, but the most interesting thing to me was that we talked about how they kind of pretend like this movie didn't happen, but apparently during an interview in 2014, Tim Roth said that he was offered to reprise his role as Abomination for Avengers Age of Ultron, but the plans fell apart during pre-production.
That surprises me.
So I don't know what the plan was there, but I mean, obviously it fell through in pre-production, which means it fell through very early on in the process.
You know what I bet it would have been? I bet it would have been like one of those early nods, like in the beginning of Age of Ultron when they're breaking into the Hydra base. I bet it would have been like Abomination's there and they duke it out with Hulk and it kind of like, and then that's over. You know, like he like beats him and it's like, oh, good thing that guy's dead forever now. I bet it would have been those kind of things.
Probably. I don't see anything for any future plans of Abomination because I just think that with the MCU, with it being canon, it's put them in a tricky place where they can't exactly do it. They can't reboot him because it's already happened.
Yeah, and
so it puts it in a tricky spot for any future appearances of the Abomination.
And it's like, it's mucky, and there's like so many characters they can already pull from. It's like, do we want to open up the can of worms of like trying to kind of reintroduce this character or just go with one that we've already done, you know?
They should do Red Hulk.
Oh, Red Hulk would be awesome.
That's
I would
another
definitely
episode.
be down for that. But yeah, we'll definitely get an episode in there. I think my biggest critique of this film, and I'm normally all for people making their own iterations, is I think that the Abomination in this film looks a little too like Resident Evil-ish. It looks very much so like a tyrant, or like one of the characters. Much more like zombie mutant kind of thing. And in the comic books, he isn't like 100% Fishman, but he's like 0% Fishman in this.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure why they 100% took that. Like, he's not quite as green as he usually is. He doesn't have his fins. I guess he's more intimidating this way, I guess. Like, you look at him and you're like, I 100% know he's a bad guy. You know, like, there's no mistake in that.
I think it had to do with the fact that they were trying to introduce super soldier serum in this. And so instead of making him Fishman, they made him big buff monster.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. That they kind of distance him a little more from the Hulk than he is in the comic books.
Yeah, and I think they were just trying to kind of start building the universe. This is the second movie in their line of...
It's a little risky to introduce
MCU.
Fishman on your second movie.
I think they're just... I mean, Marvel, we've talked about in past episodes, they have... To me, it's a problem, but I know people like it, is they have a tendency to make the villains basically the hero. I mean, we've seen it in this movie. Abomination's basically the Hulk. Killmonger was just another Black Panther suit. I always blank on his name, and you had to remind me last time, too. The bad guy in Ant-Man. Yellow Jacket.
Yellow Jacket. Yeah, I kept thinking Ant-Man. Wasp. I was like, it's not Wasp, it's not Spectre, the other one, Yellow Jacket. Yeah.
Ironmonger was basically Iron Man. Like, it's just, they have a tendency to kind of do that. I think that fell in here.
I think it's a very cheap and efficient way to not have to describe what your bad guy is. Like, you know, you could take like 15, 20 minutes to like explain to the audience, be like, okay, here's his list of powers. You know, like he does this, he does that, he's strong, he's weak. I think it's a lot easier for them to be like, all right, we've introduced you to Hulk. This guy's like bad guy Hulk. I think it's kind of like, I don't want to say cheap in a bad way, but it's kind of like a effective and easy way to be like, skip the introduction. Here's the bad guy. Now we're gonna fight.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see that.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm curious what we see if we see. We're probably not gonna see the Abomination iteration, but who knows? I would even love to just see little nods to it. You know, we go back to the Collector or something. Well, not the Collector, sadly, but a situation like that, and see like Abomination's head in a test tube somewhere, or a little
even if
nod.
like, I was gonna say, even if like in Thor Ragnarok we'd seen him as like during the Grandmaster scene, maybe he ended up there and was fighting for the Grandmaster.
That would have been really interesting.
Yeah, or just something like that that we see him again. But like we've said, I don't think we will, because they made this movie canon, so you can't do him again. Which I kind of think it would have made more sense just for them to pretend like it didn't happen.
Yeah,
and then just have Mark Ruffalo be the Hulk, and that's it. Like, you kind of know his backstory, but then we just kind of move on.
Because even from an audience perspective, like I was saying, when I watched these when I was younger, I didn't know that this movie was canon. I don't know if I when I was younger, missed the post-credit scene.
You might have.
Yeah, I might have missed it because that was like so early on in the MCU that it wasn't like known that if Marvel's making a movie, always stay after the credits. You know?
Yeah, it wasn't a thing yet.
Yeah. It was a very, very interesting way to get introduced to the Hulk, though. I think it was good for that character's introduction to the MCU. It may not have been perfect for Abomination, but served its purpose.
Yeah, I enjoyed this movie. I remember my mom took me to see this because she took me to see Iron Man, and she actually loved it. She loved Robert Downey Jr. So then I said, this is another movie in that universe. Can we go see it? She didn't like it as much, but I really enjoyed it.
I can imagine why. This seems like mom taking child to the Incredible Hulk would not like the Incredible Hulk as much as child.
And I will say another reason that this movie was really good is it was written by the same guy who wrote Ready Player One screenplay.
That was well adapted.
Yeah, he wrote the Avengers screenplay. He wrote X2, which is a good one. He also wrote X-Men Last Stand, which was not a good one.
It was an experience.
But X2 was great because we got Nightcrawler, which we'll have to do an episode on Nightcrawler.
Nightcrawler's fantastic.
And he also wrote the Fantastic Four video game.
When was that?
That was a PS2 game based on the one with the movie with Jessica Alba.
I think every superhero game in history came out for the PS2.
It was PS2 and Game Boy Advance, so I'm not going to say
what?
It was.
Why? Why those
I don't know.
two? That's oh my gosh, that's interesting. Huh.
It was still at a point where they were making
movies
for... They were making games for all their movies. They did this up through, I think, the first Thor, and then they stopped. But there's video games for Iron Man 2, Captain America, Thor, Fantastic Four, Hulk. Like, there's video games for all these. Then they stopped doing that because they all were trash.
Dude, I'm a really big... As you may know, I'm a pretty big video gamer. I never knew there was an Iron Man or Hulk or well, actually, no, the Hulk one I did know. I played that one. But I didn't know there was a Captain America game or an Iron Man 1 or 2 game. I do remember that era, though, where every movie had a video game. And I don't know how they did that. Point,
I remember not renting it, but I remember seeing at Blockbuster a video game for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. How do you make that into a video game?
That sounds like an I Spy game.
It wasn't.
No.
But like Hulk, I remember being turned into a video game. You fight Abomination. It was a cool game at the time. I feel like if I looked at it now, I'd be like, wow, this is garbage.
It served its purpose at its time.
It did. It did exactly that.
It helped advance video games as we know them. Just like Captain Crunch and the Crunchling Adventure.
Are you making that up?
No, that's a real thing. That came in a cereal box when we were growing up. You could play as Crunchlings. I had a whole discussion with someone about it.
All right, well, I'm going to need to look into that later.
Yeah, everybody go find a legally downloadable ROM for Captain Crunch and the Crunchling Adventure.
That sounds fantastic. Or a good band name.
That would be a really good band name. Captain Crunch, Crunchling Adventure, and the Abomination.
That sounds
insane. Who wouldn't want to see that band? Dude, that's a good death metal band. Oh, man. So let's take this. We're going to do another two-parter here because I think this is an interesting... Very different. We're going to go to our comicallys. I want to know how many comicallys out of 10 you would give this guy as you know him from me talking about him from the comics, and how many comicallys would you give his film adaptation of him? Because I think these are, for me, these are going to be two very different iterations.
So I think so if you would have asked me before we recorded this and I didn't know anything about the comic book Abomination, it would have been different. Now I'd give the comic book probably like a 7.5 and the film like a 6 because of how different they are.
I think that's a really good way to score it. I was going to be very similar. I think as a bad guy, I'd put him in, as a comic book character, I'd put him in that same category, of like 7.5 where it's like you kind of need the opposite version of you. Like we were talking about, like you need the Sinestro to your Green Lantern. You need your Abomination to your Hulk. Like, you need that quintessential opposite of everything you are.
Yeah.
And he fills that niche well. He's interesting enough. He does his job. So I'd give him, similar to yours, I'd give like a 7.5, 8, depending on how well you value the need for an anti-hero or antithesis or whatever you want to call it. Film,
good word.
them's those $2 words. I love that phrase. Or like college words Yeah. As a film, I would also be with you. I liked the film. I think if you disjointed it from the comic books, it would get a higher rating.
Oh, definitely.
But as an adaptation, it really, I don't want to say it like really bothers me, because nothing really bothers me. I don't care that much about, I'm just easy. I'm a relatively easygoing guy. I'm a relatively positive guy. It does bother me a little bit that he looks so different than the Abomination that I know. Because like, if you removed the name Abomination from this and you never said it and no one ever told me, I might even possibly think this was some other iteration of a Hulk-like character. Like if I didn't know if it was Emil Blonsky, if I didn't know it was the Abomination, I might just think it's, some other, there's a bunch of Hulks out there like we were kind of alluding to. So, I mean, that's kind of a bummer. I wish they had made them maybe even like a more subtle nods to the comic books, put him in some sort of aquatic environment or something and be like, oh, look, he's so great at swimming. Just something. So, yeah, I'd give it a similar rating. I'd probably give his film adaptation like a 5 out of 10 for being true to the comic books.
Yeah.
Still a good movie, though. I'm actually probably going to rewatch the movie after this episode.
I would. I enjoyed it as well.
It was a good time, Yeah. It was a good time.
Should I get into the brewery?
Yeah, let's get into our brewery a little bit.
So, like I said at the start of the show, it's hard to find a beer in these times, but I went for an exact literal copy. I went for Googling Abomination beer, and Abomination Brewing Company came up. I'm just going to kind of talk about the brewery. So, I don't know exactly the location. I think it's in New York. They never say it on the website. But you can find them on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, everything. The kind of beers they do. So they base their beers and logos in like a horror genre. So they all look like very classic, like Swamp Thing.
Hey, that's a good first one to choose.
Yeah, like Monster from the Black Lagoon. Like very classic kind of old time horror. And the kind of beer they make is very interesting. One of the ones I see right here is called Lantern Lighter. It's a pumpkin milkshake triple IPA.
Oh, that sounds so good.
And well, I think there's one on here you'll like a lot more, Ben. It's a dragon fruit and hibiscus sour.
Ooh, I like me.
I know you like sours.
Oh man, we gotta take a trip after this quarantine situation's all over and the world has healed, and we'll go to Abomination Brewing.
There's some good ones on here. There's some really cool stuff. They kind of, from what I can tell, they tend to skew higher. I think the lowest percentage I've seen was 8 of a beer for alcohol by volume.
I mean, if we're looking at like IPAs and sours, which just off the tick you've listed, I don't know everything on there, but makes sense. Tend to be a little higher.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of have a little bit of everything from what I've seen. So check them out. I think you can get their beer other places. I haven't found exactly where. Sorry about that. But if you want to do a little research of your own, Abomination Brewing Company looks really, really cool. So I would recommend it. I'm definitely going to take a look at it. They have some cool, they call it swag. I necessarily wouldn't, but some good merch on the website.
Dude, I love the world that we're living in, that people have just started to accept the word swag. And you get swag bags.
Yeah, so you can get prints of their logos, which are really, if you're a really big horror movie fan, they have really cool prints of like their logos that are really kind of scary, really cool.
This sounds kind of like your brewery, like looking at the classics here.
Yeah, no, I would definitely recommend it. It looks very cool, like very like 1940s like horror. But yeah, I think that's it for the beer, for the brewery.
I also wanted to give a shout out to, I've had some people actually message me and give me beer recommendations and comic book recommendations. So same thing through all of our social medias, everything like that. Feel free to hit us up if you have any fun ideas. They're a lot of fun to go through. Had some nice conversations and nice having a fun little time with all our listeners. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
All right, so this has been the Comically Incompetent Podcast. I'm Ben.
And I'm Doug.
And thanks for listening, everybody. And remember, stay safe out there and stay healthy, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.